Well, thanks so much for having me. I feel like I eat, breathe, sleep, dream reviews. And so excited to sort of share some of the things that I've learned. So I work at G2. I head up our customer marketing programs here. Part of my role is actually I manage our review strategy at G2. Prior to that was a G2 customer at my last two companies. And so I have been generating reviews for almost 10 years now, which seems like absolutely insane. But it's cool to be on this side of things too, because pretty much every customer that I talk to is a customer marketer, demand gen marketer, product marketer, but they all care about review content. And so I'm picking up little tidbits from experts all across industries. So excited to share some of that. I did put together a quick presentation, but I see there are a couple questions here, and I know Mary, you had some questions around review trends. And so every year, I think we'll be moving to twice a year, we put out what we call our buyer behavior report. And this is a survey that goes out to what we call buyers at G2 are basically anyone who comes to the site to shop or to leave a review. So those are our buyers. On the other side, we have our vendors, which we call our sellers. So those are the people who have a profile on G2. So sometimes I slip into that terminology. And if I do, and you're like, wait a second, what are you talking about? Raise your hand, flag that for me. But our buyers are those people who are coming to G2 to shop. So we get 90 million visitors annually to G2 who are looking for software. And from that group, we launched this survey. We got about 1,500 review responses. And what we ask is sort of like pretty broad strokes. I can share the full report if anyone's interested. But it's like, what are you looking for? What does your buying process look like? Who's involved in that process? Where are you getting your information from? What types of products are you looking for? And what are your priorities when you're shopping? And so I actually took that report and I put together a like top 3 things that customer marketers should know. And I think, Mary, this will answer most of your questions. To clarify, these are all, this is B2B buyers. So what we found is that 31% of those buyers said review sites were the most consulted info source, which I think it's something like 87 or 92% consulted review sites as part of their buying search. But the fact that 31% of those people said that review sites were the most consulted was really interesting to me. In 2021, when we did this report, only 13% of people said that. So more than double in just a couple of years here. And I think it's sort of no surprise. Like I often say, like, think about how you buy as a B2C consumer. Knowing that you're shopping for something, like, at least for me, if I'm on Amazon, the first thing I do is I read all the reviews. And I want to see what other people are saying about this product before I purchase it. I want to know what the potential pitfalls are. I want to know what the benefits are. I want to know that it's good quality. So that was one that was interesting. The other thing that is like kind of hard as a marketer, although I feel like customer marketing helps break through some of this. 9% of those buyers said they did not trust a vendor's website when they were making a buying decision. And that is up from 3% in like just a year. So I think that's really concerning from a marketing perspective, but it just like doubles down the need for customer advocates and for customer content and voice of customer content and infusing that everywhere. Instead, they're turning to peer forums and industry communities to make sort of like group buying decisions almost. So it's, I think, in the way Mary's providing a service to all of us, with talking about different vendors and really understanding other people in their space who are using things. So I think communities like this one are going to become even more important. And then the other thing that I thought was really interesting is across the board, people trusted peer review sites over analysts at like every single checkpoint. So basically, as they're progressing through the buying cycle, they might start with an analyst viewpoint, but as they're getting into the point where they're ready to make a purchase or consider a product, they trusted peer review sites over that. So what can we do about this as customer marketers? The first one is really amplify the voice of your customers. So think about where you can be creating user-generated content. Think about where you can leverage those customer stories and put the voice of the customer where your buyers are buying. I think engaging in industry communities is important, but be helpful, not salesy. I think people see right through a sales pitch. And so positioning yourself as someone who can be a helpful resource, I think is really important. And then embracing authenticity and putting authentic customer insights over sales jargon. Again, like people don't trust a website because it's all, I don't want to call it marketing fluff. That's insulting to us as marketers, but I think in a lot of places, like I was listening to a podcast yesterday and there was an ad for a tech company that was like, streamline your customer experience and uncover insights. And at the end of it, I'm like, I think that's relevant to me, but I have no idea what that software does. And I'm not going to take the time to look into it. And so I think anywhere you can use the language that your customers are using, which comes back to like, I think an unsung value of review content is like all of those reviews are in the voice of your customer. And so can teach you about how your customer is talking about your products as well. Any questions here, Mary? I know this was specifically your question, but anything
No,
deeper?
no. I think honestly I had brought this up because of the evidence gap report that came out last week.
Mhm.
I was there was a lot I liked about it as far as like it talking about the people saying that they start with analyst report and marketers saying that they think people start with LinkedIn. And I thought it was a really interesting um, way to look at it because I think a lot of times we see things on LinkedIn come up and we're like, oh, okay, that's a product I might need someday. And so when it
Mm,
comes time to start that search, it's already in our head, but we go maybe to an analyst report or something like that. But there's so much information here as well on third party reviews. Um, and I liked that they talked to like 600 people, or they had 600 people go through all of this. And so it was buyers, sellers, and marketers. And the customer reviews were one of the top things that both sellers and marketers wanted to have more of. So
mm.
I wondered, one, have you looked at that? And two, like, I wanted to see what you had to say as well. So thank you for going into that.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other thing I wanted to call out, because when you asked the question earlier about like, are we seeing an increase in review volume too? Um, I was like, yeah, it definitely feels like we are, but I don't know for sure, right? But so I did a little bit of digging in our archive and we announced our 1 millionth review in November of 2019. And so G2 as a company was started in 2012. So 6 years to get to 1 million. In December of 2023, we announced our 2 million review milestone.
That quick.
So that was, yeah. So from 2019 to 2023, that's 2 million. And then I just looked today, we're at 2.7 million reviews already.
Oh,
So in just the year is 700,000 new reviews. Um, and I'll be interested to see because we're at a lot of tech conferences these days. And I know like Dreamforce and HubSpot both had huge booths set up, and I think they each generated at least 1,000 new reviews for
wow.
HubSpot or Salesforce. So a lot of reviews coming, and I think it's a trend we're going to continue to see grow. I think the thing that's going to be important is like, how do we maintain authenticity? And so one of the things we're really passionate about here, I think at G2 is like review accuracy and making sure that it's an actual human leaving a review. which I can say like as a customer can be frustrating when you're like working really hard to generate every review and then you get a note that a review was rejected and it's like, oh, come on, what the heck? Like I'm metriced on reviews. But on the flip side, it's important because especially with AI, I feel like we're seeing a trend of like fraudulent reviews being submitted. And so our moderation team has been sort of changing the way they review reviews as well, um, in an effort to make sure that we're valuing authenticity over everything else. Because like ultimately, like the purpose of this is to make buying decisions easier, is to give you solid customer evidence. And like if it's fake, the buyer knows that, the seller knows that, it doesn't really help anybody. So
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And I know from my own point of view, the last time I was asked to do a review was probably over the weekend. And it was like $35 to do a G2 review. And I was like, I do like $35 on Amazon, but it's a lot of work and I don't want to have to think right now. And I know, though, at the same time that I like to look at reviews and I like to see what people say. But one thing that I've been really thinking about more, like you talked about the authenticity, is um, I wish like I knew who I was connected to when looking at those reviews. Like when looking at something and saying,
Hmm,
okay, this person left a review. Like Christine has
interesting.
left reviews on all of these pieces of software. Now my trust in those reviews has just like gone through the roof because I know the person behind that. And so it's something that I've thought about with CMA Weekly because we get so many people coming in and sharing their comments, not a full review as far as like, this is, this is what we came in for and all of that. But, I know who I can trust in our space, who's tried different pieces of software. And I know when I look at their reviews or their responses or what they have to say about something, if I'm going to trust them. And I think that's something that could play a big part of reviews if there's some way to make it work, that social aspect of knowing, okay, these are people you already follow, you are connected with, and you can decide like, oh, I know that person, but I don't care what they say. Like, and so it's been something I've been thinking about for a while, and just being that person right now, like I actually get a lot of requests for references for
Hmm.
different vendors in our space. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to start like setting up a fee for this or something because
Yeah.
it's a little crazy. But I understand why, because people are like, I trust the community. Um, People say they trust me as far as like the advice I give. And so when they come to me and they're like, hey, I'm thinking about getting this software. Who do you know that's used it that didn't like it or did like it or anything like that? And I try to make that connection. But how do I do that without always being the middleman? So that was
Yeah.
the thought with some of the review stuff. I'm throwing you off course, of course, but
No, that's like a really smart idea. I'm gonna, after we hang up, send that to our product manager and just be like, hey, have you ever thought about this? Because we have a team, that's obviously dedicated to like the seller side, so our vendors, our
Mhm.
customers that I work very closely with, but we also have another separate team that focuses on the buyer experience. So how do we make it easier for people shopping for software to find what they're looking for? Um, and one of our authentication options is a LinkedIn verification. And
Oh,
so
okay.
we could probably, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know
Yeah,
what it takes to do something like that, but I feel like we might have some of the right building blocks there. So great idea, Mary. Thanks for sharing that.
sure. Go ahead
Um,
after the call. Sorry, everyone, for
yeah,
interrupting with
no,
my
that's
ideas.
um, so I do have a presentation, but I see a couple questions in here, so I'll do those first. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in. Or if there's anything specific that you'd like me to dig into, I can do that as well. Rebecca's first question was how to get deep reviews. Many of ours are high level. And I think the key here is sort of what you're asking for, right? So if it's like, here's a $10 gift card, leave us a review on G2, you might get something high level where people are like, I'm just going to check the box because I want to get this gift card. I've seen if you can position the ask as like, you've got such great insight to share, help out our industry. We'd love an in-depth review on G2. Like it's changing the positioning of the ask. And obviously there will still be people who like give you, you know, the high level answer because they just want their gift card. But I think if you can make it something that's a little bit more like altruistic, helping the community, making it more about like deep feedback and just ask directly. Like we want your in-depth feedback. And then I think on the flip side too, like showing people that when they do give you that kind of feedback, you're responding to it. That helps encourage other people to continue to leave you more in-depth feedback. Rather than if it's like, I'm just leaving this comment on a public site. When you treat your reviews as actual product feedback, company feedback, and respond to them, people are more likely to give you more information. And then the second question was how to get reviews on a continued basis from a small customer base. One of the things that I think is really helpful, and this is very specific to being a G2 customer, so I won't spend too much time here. We have what we call our in-app review levers, and I'm happy to walk through these if anyone's interested. But it's basically like a pop-up that happens in your product. And so as people are logging in, they get a little prompt at the bottom, share your feedback, leave us a review on G2. You click in, it populates the review form directly in your product. So the nice thing is they don't have to create an account on G2. They don't have to go through the verification process because they're in your product. We know that they are a customer of yours and we know that they're a real person. And so that I think really helps with getting in front of the right people at the right time. Like you're having that in app because they're actively thinking about you because they're in your product. They're actively engaged with you because they're in your product. They're much more likely to leave you a review that way. And so we're seeing customers have tons of success with that, like shocking numbers of reviews generated just from turning this on. But that's a way to make sure that you're hitting all of your users. And then I think the other thing too is like, if you have a small customer base, your review volume is obviously going to be smaller because you can ask who you can ask, right? Like they have to be a customer. So then it becomes more important to think about review recency and asking for review updates. So we encourage you ask for a review update once a year. So if a customer has left you a review, following up with them a year later saying, you know, would love for you to update your response. How has your experience been lately? Please submit an update there. So those are sort of my two pieces of advice on those things. Anything I missed, Rebecca, or anything you want me to dig deeper on?
Thank you. That makes sense. One question on the review update. So if we have someone that gives an update, does that count, like from a recency perspective, that counts to help with recency, but does it actually count as a second review? Or is it just the same review, but just like counts in your recency algorithm?
Yeah, it's the same like review number, but it does count toward the review recency, which is actually part of the algorithm weight. So if you log into the backend of G2, there's actually a I don't know what you call a deprecation graph that shows you like which reviews are about to start losing value. That helps bring all of those back up to 100%. Yeah. And Shelly, I'm seeing a couple of your comments here too. The customer used ChatGPT to assist with his review and it was rejected. That one is tough, right? Like our policy is that it can't be mostly written by G2 or mostly written by AI. And so there's like automated scanners that review every review too, to say and flag like this was mostly written by AI. If it's a case like that where like you know that it was actually a customer, you can right in the back end of my G2, you can ask for a re-moderation of a review and give a reason. I would just go in there and do that and say, like, I know this is a customer and he wrote it himself, and they'll take another look at it. A human will actually review it.
Okay, I'll try that. I think I went through my CSM and she explained why, but
Okay.
I don't think I did the back end like requesting a reevaluation. I can try that.
Yeah. It does take a little bit because it's an actual, like, it's a team of humans who review them. But I would definitely give it a shot because I know how
Thanks.
hard it is to get those reviews.
I know.
And then the custom question one, I actually have not heard that. They don't tell you who answered the custom questions. Interesting.
Mm-mm.
Even if it's if they gave their information.
Um, I feel like it's part of the back end, like they're not connected or something like that. And like the
Weird.
whole custom questions thing is a separate module, maybe. I'm not quite sure,
Okay.
but
Yeah, I'll dig into that because that
okay.
seems silly, right?
Because that could help Rebecca,
Yeah.
like if if you added more custom questions,
Yeah.
that maybe that could have gotten you more deeper insight review kind of a thing. And for the few who might still be using Influitive, another thing you could do to get deeper reviews would be to or any program like Influitive, to give them bonus points for going deeper, to go into more detail in their review. You could manually award like bonus points for that in whatever gamification platform you might be using.
That's a great idea. We have also made a few changes to the review form itself too, to encourage longer responses. So it now, like, it counts the number of characters and will say, like, we suggest, 1,000 words or more for this question. And then it'll also like prompt, like, it could be good to add your use case or how you're using it. So it's a little more prescriptive than it was even a year ago. Um, but I think sometimes, yeah, just like explicitly asking or incentivizing, leaving a deeper review is a good way to go. Anything else specifically? I can sort of share what I had presentation wise and see if there's anything you want me to dig into. And we can go from there. Otherwise, I'll just start from the beginning. But basically, the first one is like building a comprehensive review gen strategy. So all of the places you can be asking for reviews. I did a few slides on responding to reviews. So the who, what, where, when, why, how of responding to reviews, making the most out of every review. So how do you extract maximum value from reviews, but then also from badges? And then the last one, I had some like G2 specific slides talking about our algorithm, and then some of those review accelerators that I mentioned. Anything here that jumping out to people, or I can just start from the beginning?
Maura said, where to ask for reviews.
Great. Awesome. Cool. So I usually start with, like, as you're building a strategy, like, it really should be a strategy. It should be something that you're thinking about, like all of the pieces of it and who gets involved. Like I always say, if G2 becomes like a customer marketing only thing, you're going to hit a wall, and it's going to become like, me, the customer marketer, I'm asking my CSMs for a favor and like letting me talk to their customers, or I'm like begging, please let me send this this review, ask for your customers. And I have absolutely been there. But I think when you sort of can start with like the why reviews are important, and why getting like a consistent flow of reviews is important, is a good way to get buy-in beyond just making it a customer marketing thing. But my basic 4 pillars of review collection: one is make sure you're asking everyone for reviews. I know that there is a trend toward like, I'm only going to ask my advocates or my best top customers to leave me reviews. One, that is like against FTC guidelines. So if you're doing that, don't tell me that you're doing it. But also it doesn't give anyone a good picture of what it's like to actually be your customer. And so you end up doing yourself a disservice. You end up doing your buyers a disservice. If you're only asking your happiest customers for those reviews. And then also too, like, think about the way we all buy for things. Like when I'm shopping on Amazon, I'm immediately sorting to look at like, what are the 1-star reviews? Because I want to see what the downfalls are. And then I look at like, what are the 3-star reviews saying? So what are the pros and cons? Is this a good fit for me and my specific needs? Yeah, Mary, see your hand.
So I'm very curious. You just said,
Yeah.
don't tell me if you are only asking your top customers for reviews. What happens if G2 finds that out?
We would tell you to stop. Like there's not a, I'm not going to report you to the FTC. I'm not going to like do anything crazy, but it is like, we would encourage you strongly, like, don't do that. It's not, like I said, it's not a good experience for your customers. It's not a good experience for your buyers. And like, if the FTC were to audit your profile someday and found out, like, you could be fined thousands of dollars, but I'm not like, I don't have a list and I don't have a contact at the FTC, if that was your real question.
No, that wasn't my
Okay.
real question.
Okay.
I'm just watching the evolution of what happens
Yeah.
with this. A couple years ago it came out and they're like, you're not supposed to do this. And then just recently it seemed like there was some update that's like, hey, you're really not supposed to do this and we're going to take it seriously. And so before it was like, just don't do this. Now it's don't tell us you're doing this. So
No, that was just me joking.
yeah, okay.
That was, yeah, there's not like anything. It's, yeah, like it's definitely not best practice. It's definitely borderline illegal. I think the FTC cracking down, they're really cracking down on like B2C reviews. Because, that impacts consumers a little bit more directly, but it's only a matter of time before they start looking at B2B reviews as well. And honestly, like that's always been our policy at G2, even before all of this stuff. And it comes back to the like authenticity of reviews, but also like the additional benefit. And I don't think I have anything like this, and maybe I do, but like every review you get is also a piece of feedback. And so if you've ever run an NPS program or ever run like a customer sentiment program, like it's hard to get people to respond to those surveys. If they're leaving you a review and they're telling you what they're thinking of you, your company and your product, like that's invaluable feedback that you also gather. And if you're only asking your super happy advocates, you're missing out on that too.
Right.
So my other 3 pillars: ask for reviews consistently and ask for review updates. So we talked a little bit about that and how important that is for the G2 algorithm. But it's also important for buyers. So in our buyer behavior report, we also asked about, review recency, and 85% of buyers considered reviews more than 3 months old to be irrelevant. And so they're also looking at your most recent reviews as well, which is why we factor that into our algorithm so heavily. And then my last piece here is just make sure you're responding to your reviews. Again, like when a customer is taking the time to leave you feedback, it's just really good to say thank you for that. And if they're leaving something critical or something that can be addressing it, it just sort of helps feed that feedback loop. It shows like prospects who are coming to your profile that you take customer feedback seriously. So always a good idea. And I do have a couple slides here that I can talk through that as well. My sort of like guide to capturing authentic feedback and staying FTC compliant. Instead of only asking your NPS 9 and 10s or 8, 9, 10s, automate your review asks. So anyone who leaves you an NPS response, ask them to leave you a review as well. They're already taking the time to leave you feedback. There's a good chance they'd be willing to share it with you in another way. Instead of only including your advocates in outreach, make sure you pull a list of customers that's reflective of your whole customer base. So it doesn't have to be every single one of your customers, but just like a good variety of active users. Only asking for reviews after a customer renews instead of that one-time ask. Embed these asks throughout the life cycle, and we can talk about a few places I would suggest there. And then instead of running campaigns once a quarter, which is how I feel like most people do that, figuring out ways to make your review asks always on helps with review volume. If you can build some of these like set it and forget it programs, it also helps with your own work volume, and also helps ensure that you're getting a consistent flow of reviews. So my recommendation is a diversified review collection strategy. So the basics are those like quarterly campaigns. So making sure that you are consistently asking for reviews, even if it is once a quarter, having just some specific cadence of running those campaigns. The second here is the set it and forget it. So embedding that into the life cycle. Even at G2, like we have after 90 days, when you go through our onboarding program, we ask you to leave a review. And we have that in a couple other places throughout the life cycle. In person is a really good way to ask for reviews. Like I just mentioned, Dreamforce and the Inbound conference, they had at HubSpot, they had QR codes right outside of every session. They also had a booth dedicated in their exhibit hall. And for them, I think it was like the first 1,000 reviewers got a HubSpot Yeti. And so in, I think it was like the first 3 or 4 hours, they had already hit that 1,000 review milestone. So obviously they have a lot of people there, and it's mostly their users, and they were giving a pretty cool gift. But the same thing happened at Dreamforce. They had people sort of like walking around the event with a QR code on like a paddle. And if you left a review, you could either get a specific Salesforce hoodie, or I think they also maybe had a Yeti or a cup of some kind that you could only get if you left a review. So those are some fun ways. And then I'm realizing here I didn't update the bottom part, but asking across the life cycle, which we'll talk about next. So
I asked a question just
oh yeah.
about a year ago or so. A good place to ask for reviews was on the login page, life cycle.
Yeah.
Is this still a good place today?
Yeah, for sure. That's, well,
Yep.
I don't know if you can see my mouse, but
Okay,
right
so
there. Yeah,
next
that's
time I'll just wait.
no, that's okay. That's a great place to ask for reviews. And so some of the other places I would recommend are after your implementation, at a renewal, or as part of a QBR. We have just a slide that we've included in our business review decks asking our customers to leave reviews for G2 during webinars or at events. So we talked about events, but we also offer monthly, they're now called G2U Edge sessions for our customers. And the last slide in all of those decks is please leave us a review. After a support ticket is closed, following an NPS or a CSAT response, those in-product pop-ups, which we can talk more about as well, on your sign-in page, that's a great one. Through your partner networks, one-to-one outreach from your team, drop it in your email signature if you're customer facing, making the ask in your customer community. And I know a lot of people are also doing that in tools like Influitive. And then finally in your customer newsletter, which is another cool one. And if you're a G2 customer, we do have something called, oh God, what is it called? The review button, review us button. And it's just like an HTML snippet, but basically you can copy and paste that button almost anywhere and it'll take people directly to your review form. And so people will put that on their sign-in screen. They'll put it in their newsletter. I've even seen like if you have a page, maybe for like a user group conference and you have a chat bot on that page, adding that button as a prompt in the chat bot has been really effective as well. So as they're coming to a page that's customer facing, they get a little pop-up like, hey, we see your customer. We'd love for you to leave us a review. So those are just a few different places to put those review asks. And then some ideas for how to ask. I get asked this question all the time, like, how do I ask for reviews? Or what kind of language can I use? So these are just a few that I've used in the past. We're excited to continue working with you. Would you be willing to share your experience with us over the past year? I'm glad to have been able to help you solve this issue. Would you mind writing an online review to share your experience? We're excited to test out some of these new offers with you. Would you be willing to share your past experience? And so these are obviously at different points in the life cycle. These are one-to-one messages, but you could also use these with a little bit of tweaking in sort of mass outreach as well. The one thing that I will call out also as part of FTC guidelines, you cannot ask for a positive review. So you shouldn't be saying, you know, we're excited to continue working with you. Would you be willing to share your positive experience with us? Or would you be willing to write a positive review on G2? Those are both no-goes. And then finally, and I see we only have about 15 minutes, so I can wrap up here and answer any questions. These are some real examples from our customers that I've seen recently, ways that they're asking for reviews. So customer surveys and incentives, this is actually in the Flowcast newsletter. They have a whole section in their customer newsletter for surveys and review responses. So I really like that they called it out there. This one down here, you can see this is their launch event exclusively for customers, and they have that write a review button there. This one up here is from Salesforce. So they had these little cards all over the event. Scan the QR code, leave us a review, receive an exclusive hoodie. So they could only get this hoodie by leaving a review. There was no other way for people to get this exclusive Salesforce hoodie. And then this one is actually in an event app. So that was something that they embedded into their user group conference. They had a section right in their event app for writing a review. This Cue the Celebration one I really liked. I had not seen anything quite like this before. This was actually a direct mail campaign to their customers. And I think it was at a specific milestone, like they had hit 1 year. They sent this out with a speaker, and the QR code here is, you know, get another $25 or get a, like, here's this gift. Thanks. We're happy to celebrate you. If you want more, scan this QR code, leave us a review, get $25 gift card. And then on the bottom here, I thought this one was kind of cool. I was about to log into Postal and this little pop-up came up, leave us a review on G2. So those are some of the ways that I recommend trying out. Like, my ultimate advice when people are like, how do I get reviews, is you have to ask for them. So make sure you're putting the ask out to your customers where they are, and sort of varying up the ask, hitting different audiences. That's sort of the best way to get maximum reviews. Any questions?
That's a lot of information. Does anyone
Yeah.
have any questions about anything she brought up, or even other points about reviews?
This one's a little bit off topic. Are you ready?
Yeah. Oh gosh,
So,
sure.
so Caitlin, just last week, we got a, like a spam, I guess, from Trustpilot, where we have actually bad reviews on there.
Okay.
Do you, and I replied, okay, we're focused on G2 and GPI,
Sure.
by the way. Do you have any competitive, do you have any data on other sites like that, other review sites, and their credibility versus G2? Like, anything I could easily point to say, I'm just not going to worry about this. There's only, 300 people use that site anyway.
Sure. We do have some traffic data. Let me see. I don't know if Trustpilot is on our normal like graph that we show. It's mostly like the Gartner sites and Trust Radius, but Trustpilot we probably could pull. Let me do
Okay,
some digging for you.
thanks.
Share one thought on that, Shelley. We also got slammed on Trustpilot. I don't know for you, but for us, it was from some customers in EMEA who were just complaining, right? They had a bad support experience. They decided to go complain. And because it had not been a priority for us to get reviews there, because most of our competitors don't collect reviews there, we didn't have a lot of positive reviews. And we actually lost the deal because of it. Somebody, went on and they saw the negative reviews for our customer support, and they're about to sign and they did not. So that was incentive enough for us to say, okay, we need to do something about this. So interestingly, this is being recorded. So we started diversifying a little bit and asking for reviews on Trustpilot as well as G2, and then their salespeople got in touch with us right away, and they're like, if you ask people to directly give you reviews, you get this little like notification. I forget what they call it, like may or may not something, I forget. But if you pay us and you become a paid customer and you get reviews in this other way, then you don't get that like message. I don't know if any customers actually notice that and really understand what that means. I guess where we sort of landed was we went after the direct reviews to at least balance out and negate some of the ones that were negative for support, because that's where we had gotten dinged. So our goal is, at least if that happens again, where a prospect comes and looks, they'll see a balance. And so they won't just see like 5 negative and 0 positive, they'll see 5 negative and 5 positive.
Yeah.
But we worked with our SEO team to help us prioritize which review sites were most important. And again, with our competition, and our competition's not on Pilot at all. Like they don't even have any claimed there, ever. But yeah, we just wanted to negate the negative reviews, and then we'll just watch it. Just keep kind of
Yeah.
It is what we decided to do.
Cool. Thanks.
Awesome. And Rebecca, I'm just seeing your question here too about how important is it to respond to every happy customer who leaves a review, and do I have any data on why it matters? So we didn't get into this question or this section, but it was all about responding to reviews. And in the why, I show a stat, but it's like 2/3 of customers actually expect a response to their reviews. And something like, I think 1/3 of those expect a response within 7 days. And so it's like, honestly, me, Caitlin, the customer marketer, if I'm thinking about like a realistic strategy with the team I have today or team I've had in the past, I would also prioritize responding to negative reviews. Like, I think any negative review you should 100% respond to. I think the positive ones, it's nice to just say like, thanks so much for sharing your feedback, and maybe mention, reference something that they shared in their review. We love having you as a customer. And so here, what we do is we actually have a document that's a shared, like, almost like, well, we call them response templates, but they're canned responses. So we have ones for positive reviews that mention our service team or our support team or a specific name. And then we have, depending on the, like, something critical they might mention, at least that way we have a starting point. So you're not having to like start from scratch. G2 actually also has an AI response generator as well. So it doesn't generate like a full response for you, but it gives you like a starting point to customize to make that a little bit faster. And that's a feature that I'm super proud of, because it was I happened to be talking to one of our product team members about it, and he's like, hey, you're a customer marketer, what were you struggling with? And I was saying, like, it's really hard to respond to all the reviews when you're getting a high volume, especially if you're running like quarterly campaigns and you're getting 100 at a time. Keeping up with that can be really hard. And so they had a hackathon, and they asked if I would be their like team sponsor, and that was one of the things that came out of it. And so they've refined it, and now it's available to customers in the back end. But I would say like prioritizing the negative reviews, and then if you have the time or can make the time, just saying thank you for the positive ones is good. We also have a Slack channel here that every review gets fed into that channel. And so depending on what the review is, and obviously I know like I am very fortunate that like our product team, our customer success team, our support team, they obviously get the value of G2 reviews. They're super leaned into any review content that we get. Depending on what the review is, I'll tag the person that I think is most relevant and say like, hey, Rachel, can you respond to this person? If not, I will. Like, I basically make the offer. But that's been really helpful too in making it like not just my job to respond to all of them. especially if it's something where like they mentioned, well, actually how Shelley sort of mentioned custom questions and the limitation there. Like, I didn't know that was a limitation and now I'm going to figure that out. If she had left that as a G2 review, I would tag the product owner and be like, hey, can you respond to this or help me understand, what's actually going on here? So that's probably a long-winded answer to a short question, but I've got a lot of feelings about responding to reviews.
Did you see Rachel's questions? Do you have data on technical business titles more likely to complete of your review? And do you allow reviewers to update their reviews? Which I think that's yes, right?
Yeah, we definitely allow and encourage reviewers to update their reviews. And I would say like that should be part of your strategy, is asking for those review updates as well. I don't think we have any data on technical versus business titles. But honestly, I will tell you, like, every day I learn something new about our customers and their reviewers. So I just worked on it, I guess it was a year ago now. God, it feels like just yesterday. We did a case study with a customer who was using one of those in-app review asks. So we have an integration with Pendo, and they use the Pendo integration, and they saw like 1,000 new reviews in the first 6 months of using it. And I was sort of talking to her, and she was saying like the thing that made it so special is their customers are truck drivers. So it's a company called Truck Stop, and basically they connect truck drivers with freight that needs to be moved around the country. And so she was like, I was really really concerned that we were not going to get them to leave reviews, because they're not typically people who are like very invested in software or use a lot of software, where I feel like, us as marketers, we know what reviews are. When we're asked to leave reviews, it makes sense. We get what's happening. She was like, I was really concerned that they wouldn't get it. But by making it super easy and putting it in product, they got 1,000 new reviews really quickly. So that was really cool. Do I have any data on what a good response and open rate is for campaigns? Typically, Kara, I don't know about good. I know the average is about 20%. From like number of contacts you send to people leaving reviews, is about a 20% response rate.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah, actually, it sort of depends, but I do think that's about the average. When people like, they send a heads up email saying, hey, we're running this campaign. And then we do like the 3 email touch point. But the heads up email really helps too, because even in my past, like when I've run them, we would get customers reaching out being like, hey, is this spam? Like, this company is offering me a gift card. This feels fake. They're sending emails on your behalf. I want you to know that. So when you can send a heads up email, and usually in that heads up email, I would also include an ask. You'll get a lot of people right out of the gate there too.
Perfect.
Well, I did not think about doing the heads up email. I might add that to mine.
It honestly, like, I've heard it as a recommendation, and even at the time, my CSM told me to do it, and I was just like, oh, okay, I'm not going to do that. And then we got a ton of customers reaching out to their CSM being like, this company is impersonating you. And it was like, oh no, they're not. But we were in higher ed, so they didn't, it wasn't like a typical tech audience. So they were very concerned for us, which was nice. But then every time after that, I would send that heads up email.
I thought you were saying G2 was sending a heads up email to G2 customers or visitors and being like, hey, we're going to be sending you an email asking for reviews soon from G2.
Yeah. No, it's usually, and I would send that heads up email. Like, so me working at, TargetX, I sent it from Katlin, director of marketing, saying, hey, this is a new channel that's really important for us. We'd love to capture your feedback. You'll see an email from G2 in the next couple of days asking you to leave a review asking on our behalf for you to leave a review. Or if you'd like to get a head start, here's the landing page. The first, 100 people to leave a review get a $25 gift card, is usually how I would word that.
Nice. Well, we're at the end of the call. I just want to say that Robert Maddox is going to do a job seekers call right after this. The link is in the chat. Caitlin, I love it when you come on. You always share things
Thank you.
that I haven't quite thought of lately, or things that I'm like, yes, I've heard these things, like great things like this from other people in the community. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing all your knowledge because you're so willing to do it. And I try to make sure that a lot of people hear about it. So, and great presentation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And so good to see you all. I feel like it had been a while since I've been on a Friday call, so I'm glad to be back. You'll
Yeah.
see me again soon.
Thank you. Good stuff,
Thank
guys
you.
or ladies.
Okay, I will
Talk
see you
soon.
all again soon. Definitely, Caitlin, check out that evidence gap report because I just think
Yeah.
there's so much with that review stuff that helps. And it was a good report. Like I like to dig into that data. I also found another one this week about email campaigns. So now I got to go back and look at that.
Oh,
I figure my place
would
as
love
a
that one
community
too.
manager is, I should be on top of the state of reports so that I can push it out to the community and be like, here's what you need to know. And you don't have to go through for an entire hour and figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
So everyone have a great weekend, and I'll be on next week to see whoever is around. Have a good time.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank
Talk
you.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.